Morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on wherever you are. And welcome to another Analytics Tug User Group meeting on the 21st of November. And so, just a bit of an intro. What makes this tug a little bit different? So, this tug is all about learning about analytics in Tableau. It takes place virtually basically every month, unless there's some kind of exception. We're going to be here with you and for you. And we're here to learn about functions on the Tableau platform and desktop, web edit, ask data, and then even now, as we're going into all that AI stuff, of course, we're going to delve in with you as well. It's about analytics all the time, and occasionally we're going to be joined by some members of the Tableau team to talk about features and kind of get us primed and prepped for everything that's coming with those updates. And so to stay in tune with everything, please do subscribe on Bevy so that way you get all the notifications, all the videos. And you can essentially scan this QR code to get all that information as well. And finally, we do have a forums page where you can just search up Analytics User Group, and then you can see all that stuff that we got going on for you as well. Now, as far as our leaders go, we have Annabelle, who is currently just enjoying life. Prasan, who's a senior BI engineer at Emirates MBD, and myself, I'm a database designer and developer. Is that analytics, my business, essentially. Bit more about Annabelle. She's got a blog. You can essentially, check her out. She's a Tableau visionary and an ambassador. And of course, to stay in tune with all the things she's got going on, you can also check out her Twitter. In terms of her passions, she loves Tableau, like we all do. She loves her dog and she loves chocolate. And she's currently located in Zurich, which is in Switzerland. And a bit more information about her. She also co-leads an enablement webinar series. And you can check out the YouTube channel by scanning the QR code over here as well. Prasan Prem, who we all know so much, that's his Twitter. He's also a Tableau visionary and ambassador. A little bit about his Tableau. He fell in love with Tableau and the data fam. And, as you know, he's essentially very, very, keen on giving back. And so he founded the Tableau Buddy and Viz Diner, which are essentially, places where you can go and get a nice introduction to Tableau, career tips, and essentially just helping you launch yourself into the eco space with, tools, tips, technical guides, everything you need to get, situated. He started using Tableau in 2020, and he currently works as a senior BI engineer at Emirates MBD. He's got a strong sense of community building and mentoring, and currently till date, he's mentored over 500 professionals. That number definitely keeps growing like more and more and more. And he's got over 17,000 followers on LinkedIn. So he's like basically a superstar influencer in our midst. So, we're humbled to have him. He loves data art, and he's got 4 Viz of the days. Fun fact about Prasan, he loves cats, food, and anime. And these are 3 things which he can die for. And now on to myself, freelance and a contract, actually. That's my Twitter name. I should actually update that because I changed that a bit. So this DataViz Chimney. I'm a Tableau visionary and ambassador. And about my Tableau journey, basically, I'm currently a freelance and contract DataViz, for different clients in different industries. It's something I really love doing, and I really just enjoy helping understand what their needs are and helping them, just see their data better. I also started with Tableau in 2020, just like Prasan. And, for me, that's just something that really transformed my career, and I really love that. I have, 14 visitor days now. I co-lead Makeover Monday, which is a weekly challenge just geared at, giving us practice with our visualization skills, our data communication skills, and our analysis skills. And so, for those of you who are constantly participating, appreciate that. For those of you who are kind of, looking for ways to get your hands dirty, definitely check out Makeover Monday. I love the data fam, and I believe in strong, functional aesthetics. If you doubt me, you can check out my profile. I think, like, I believe that beauty and data aesthetics just really helps people more receptive to insights. So that's something I'm always like, pushing for when I get my hands dirty. Fun fact about me, I'm a Viz junkie. So even if you don't see me posting on Tableau public, I'm definitely still always using Tableau in the background. There's just like exploring that creativity for me. It just does a lot. I also enjoy watching documentaries, things, stories, and just getting that kind of information. Occasionally, I get on the keyboard and try to do some melodies, nothing fantastic, but, it's still fun for me. And I do enjoy, fitness and working out just to kind of keep my health there as I get older. So a few ground rules before we get into things today. Please use the chat section to, interact, have fun. But for questions, please use the Q&A so that your questions don't get lost in the chat and they can be addressed by the appropriate speaker. And of course, the most important rule, please enjoy yourself. Also know that the session is and it'll take you to the YouTube channel where you can check it out and make sure that you're kind of, getting what you need from that. We also got our social media at Analytics Tug. So please go ahead, show us some love. And of course, you can still get some more information from us on there as well. Quick agenda for today. Introduction, which is already done. And then, as far as speakers go, we're going to have Lewis, you going first, talking about the GamesNightViz starter kit, the origins. So, whether you're into games or anything of this sort, this is something that you want to look into. It's really fun, a bunch of data, a bunch of cool stuff there. And next, we're going to have Lisa, who, if you've seen TC or attended TC, you've seen kind of like the speed tips that are done there. Lisa, who essentially, has won Iron Viz, she's going to give us something similar, basically getting on stage, speed vising, and just doing what she did in that amount of time. Obviously, she's gotten her hands dirty with that. And so she's going to share with us ways to kind of get things done quickly and efficiently. And finally, we're going to have Ojoswi Basu, who is going to talk about dynamic data range using parameter actions. And of course, there's going to be lots of opportunities for questions and answers. So please, tune in, dial in, and get your questions out there for them. And over to Prasan, who's going to bring in our speakers for us today.
Okay, so first we have Lewis Yu. Uh, Most of us already know Lewis. He is the guy who plays games. We met for the first time last year TC, and we are brothers. So you can find him up on Twitter at DataVizLewis. And about him, he has been a part of visual analytics team in 2K games, and he's the lead developer for many of their game titles dashboards. Please don't message him for discounts on PS5 games, but if you want, like, you can definitely reach out. Okay, jokes aside, outside of work, Lewis is very dedicated towards community. He co-leads the community project as well as the Singapore Tableau User Group. He has been a Tableau conference speaker, a featured author, and also a top 15 Iron Viz qualifier. And recently, Tableau published the 11 most favorited visualizations on Tableau Public, and Lewis has one of his Viz amongst those lists. So that's a big one. Congrats, Lewis. And fun fact, he doesn't like Irish coffee. He has a sweet tooth, especially apparent during stressful October. That's some analogy we might hear from Lewis himself. And I think catching up on secrets of the Viz video editing backlog, I think that is something really nice he is doing on YouTube. He's having those conversations behind whatever happens behind the Viz of all the some of the great Vizes you must have already seen on Tableau Public. And apart from that, he's either chewing down a tub of ice cream, a pack of chips, a bag of popcorn, or one of his Skittles gummy treats. Wow, that's a lot of sweets actually. How are you fit, man? And okay, jokes aside, his presentation is on GamesNightViz Starter Kit, the origin. Uh, it's a great community project, and most of us have played games, right? I was almost a games addict, but now I play FIFA. But he's going to take us into the games world. So over to you, Lewis.
Thank you, Prasan, for that very nice introduction. So, like you said, I have a very sweet tooth. So October was pretty stressful fun month for me because of work, because of Iron Viz, and also catching up on like video editing backlogs. So yeah, I snack a lot at night. Unfortunately, not a healthy habit. I'm trying to cut down on that, but I digress. So let me just share my screen. And let's see, it should be this one, and you guys should be able to see it. So we are in the AI era. So if you think that this photograph of me is looks very uncanny, it is because it is created by AI. You know, Prasan, Chimli, and Lisa will probably attest to this, but we don't have a ambassador t-shirt like this, unfortunately. But this is pretty cool. Like AI did a pretty nice job making me look slimmer than I look actually. But this is a one link QR code to my social. So if you want to connect with me, you can do that. So as Prasan and Chimney has introduced me, I'm a public ambassador, Tableau public ambassador. I call it the Singapore Tableau User Group and the GamesNightViz community project, which is what I'm here to talk about today. Earlier this year, I've started a YouTube channel, podcast, and so on and so forth, on Secrets of the Viz. And what it is about is actually kind of just 10 to 15 minutes interview style. I know Chimney has been on the show. So it kind of dives into the author's thought processes, design inspiration, and how they actually do data collection and some really cool techniques that the community can learn from. And you guys will probably hear it first, but I'm actually having a Christmas special that I'm going to dive in for not all of the Iron Viz entries. It would be crazy if I had sat down with all 191 of them, but I've handpicked about 10 to 20 of them. So keep a lookout on that. So the idea would be to release these videos every day in December, just as my Christmas special present to the committee. So hope you guys look forward to it. So GamesNightViz, how did it started? It started with this grand idea from Will Sutton, and you guys will probably know who he is. And this is just one of the picture from the Zoom calls that we have at very weird hours, because it's really hard when Tina is in US, I'm in Asia, Will is in London. So that's literally 3 different time zones that we need to work around. And we did have like calls to brainstorm on how we want to bring across this community project. And Will was the brainchild behind this. Like, he started this entire thing. He sorted out me and Tina to help him with this, and it's been quite a journey. And I enjoy every aspect of it. So for GamesNightViz, we started in November 2021, and we have grown quite a bit because every couple of months we have like a challenge with a data set. And what we used to do is that we search across the web for usable data sets that the users that the community can use to practice their data viz, or just create a viz out of fun. And this is just some of the data sets that we have to date. And you can see that there's a huge range of different video games and genres that you can see. There's like card games, there's like casino games, board games, and even video games itself. So it's really fun. And for the past couple of years, we have worked also with some of the other community projects as a collaboration to kind of bring this further and also reach out to new audience, right? And this picture at the right is actually a compilation of just some of the great vizes that the community has churned out. And there's so many good ones, and I can't actually put everything here. But what happened was that we did kind of like season one. We call it season one when we ran the program from November 21 to March 23rd. So every couple of months you would see that we have some like a theme challenge. And we did have a lot of support from the community, and we're really thankful for that. So in season one, we did have about like 151 total visitors, but you can see over here, right, there is very like the entries per challenge varies quite a bit. There are some that really got a lot of kind of entries from the community, especially if you look at like Back to Viz Basic Collab, which was the one that we did on Mario dataset. So I think that's also why we got a lot of entries, because a lot more folks know who Mario is as opposed to the other games. And we also did a lot of side stuff like creating T-shirts and bringing it to Tableau conference to give out as well. And then fast forward a couple of months, we kind of sat down with the team to kind of discuss how we want to bring this to the next step, and that's how season 2 started. So currently we are in season 2, and we did have a new kind of T-shirt design with kind of collectibles, and we also have Anne joining us earlier this year to help us to bring GamesNightViz to higher grounds, right? And this was very interesting because we went back to the drawing board to see what are the things that we can potentially engage the community with. And we started off with just looking at game launches, anniversaries, and other games outside of video games, right? And we finally settled on a timeline, which is probably, if you have been following GamesNightViz, this was what we ran from last July all the way to this June, right? So we started off with kind of punny titles that represents the games that we are trying to bring across. So last July we did on Bomberman and Pac-Man, and then we did in September all the different fighting games. In November we did Disney, and so on and so forth. The very last one we did was in June, where we basically asked people to viz about anything related to games and food. So we had a lot of entries on like Stardew Valley and what was the other one? I think it was like Cooking Mama and Overcook. Yeah. So if you played those games, a lot of folks probably played those games during the COVID time. So I think that was a huge win for us. So, and also we did collaborate with the Japan user group. So that brought in a lot more international folks into the mix as well. Right. And what we also did was kind of live builds for GamesNightViz, where me or Will sit down and just record us live building a viz from nothing to something. And it was really interesting because for one, it tested our ability to build something out of scratch and kind of iterate on the spot. And it was really interesting. But the problem we faced was that some of the videos could potentially be very long. So you have like this Pac-Man viz that I did that took about almost 2 hours. I mean, you could argue that 2 hours to build a viz is still considered reasonable, but we did still have to do a lot of homework prior to that. It's not sustainable because at that point of time, like both me and Will wasn't too great at video editing, so that really took us a lot of time just to get through to the committee. And then this is basically a summary of what we have done so far, right? So you have like from season 1 to season 2. And this brings us to our main topic for today. One of the things that we realized was that, like I said earlier, we have different level of interest when it comes to the different challenges, and we dabbled around with like different game genres, game titles, things that we think people would resonate with. But unfortunately, not everyone plays game. Although, in my Iron Viz entry, I did find the snippet of data that indicates that 1 out of 3 of the world population plays games. But not everyone plays game to the same degree or knows a lot of those video game characters and all. So the reason, the driving force behind GamesNightViz is we wanted people to viz something that they love, and if they don't resonate with it, then it's really hard to practice it. So we wanted to look at how we can actually gather something as a holistic, robust data set. So we realized that because not every data resonate with people, so we looked around like Kaggle, Wikipedia, Metacritic, so on and so forth, just to get an idea of what we can potentially pull into a sort of like a master list. And there were a lot of challenges when we started this program. Started to gather this information, and I'll go through them. So the challenges we faced mostly was around inconsistency, right? You have different websites having different naming conventions, and this was really annoying because it makes it very hard to kind of combine the data and kind of match them title to title. So you can see from here, this is a data from How Long to Beat, which tracks the amount of game time a player plays for each game. And you can see, just for example, this is Final Fantasy VII Remake. And this is a DLC, a downloadable content, which is additional content on top of the base game. Whereas for Metacritic, it actually doesn't have the same naming convention. It doesn't have like episode and the little dash over here. So little things like this actually make a difference. And you also notice that the naming is also different. Over at Metacritic, they call it integrate. Over at How Long to Beat, they actually call it intermission, which is actually the correct title. But unfortunately, somewhere along the line, it could be issue of localization or just information given by the publisher to the retailers themselves, right? So that's one. The other problem we faced was titles using the same name. And this happens more frequently when developers try to re-release or try to remake the entire game, but they use the same exact name from before. So this is an example from 1992, Mortal Kombat. Hopefully, most of you have heard what Mortal Kombat is. It's a fighting game that is very brutal and bloody. It's probably not for kids, but I did play it as kids. But yeah, and in 2011, they actually redid the game in higher fidelity, and it's essentially a reboot of the entire game. But they used the same name of what they did in 1992, which when I was pulling up the data from the different websites, I keep getting duplicate values and duplicate titles, but the rest of the information, like your game description, your platform release, your date release, were all different. So it took me quite a while to pick up on this trend. I mean, even though I'm in the video games industry, shame on me. But this was something that I found out. And there were also inconsistent genre categorization, right? So if we just look at the difference between Metacritic and Wikipedia. So a simple title like Zelda, Metacritic tags it as action adventure. Wikipedia sometimes tags it as action adventure, sometimes tags it as open world as well. Another one would be, let's say, Fortnite. So I think some of you might have heard of Fortnite. It's a first-person shooter, battle royale. So you kind of, everyone just drop in. I think about 10 to 20 players dropping into a map, and basically everyone fights for survival. And it's a battle royale kind of game, but Metacritic tags it as an action game, whereas Wikipedia tags it as a battle royale. So this is a more problematic discrepancy as opposed to Zelda. And there were this this discrepancy was happening throughout the entire data set, which was really hard to work around with. And I'll get into how I actually solved it later on. The other problem we faced was also on data granularity. right? So over here, you have just two titles from Wikipedia, the same website, just within the same website. And you can see over here, the developers have one record, so that's fine. But when you look at publisher, right? Publisher has for The Witcher, they have actually three different publisher, and this happens when they have kind of like localization team, or they kind of sublet the I would say the game to different publishers for different regions, and this is kind of just due to like how they run the business. So CD Projekt is the main developer, so they create the game. Within worldwide, they kind of launch it via CD Projekt entity. But in Japan, Sega actually helps them to distribute the game, right? So there's actually two different publishers. Whereas for Black Myth or Wukong, there's only just one, because the developers are the one that are publishing the game, and that's fine. And you can see even for here, you have the platforms, right? You have like PlayStation 4, Windows, Xbox One, and so on and so forth. For Black Myth Wukong, you have 3 instead of 6. So there are a lot of differences when it comes to like games as well, because not all games release on all platforms. Some only release on one platform, and so on and so forth. And the last problem I had was on re-releases. So Final Fantasy is one of my favorite games, and it came out in like 1992. And that was on PlayStation. After that, what Square Enix did was that they re-released the game on PC, kind of like an incomplete port. And then they also kind of revamped it a couple of years later. So it was a double release on PC, an additional release on mobile, and finally, about 4 to 6 years back, they actually remade the entire game in full 3D. So it's no longer pixelated art, and they call it like the Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is fine because it's like a totally different game, a different name itself. But in recent years, we have seen a lot of developers going by this route. They will take all their old games and they'll probably just upscale the graphics just by a little bit, or maybe kind of fix some bugs and re-release it for modern consoles. And oftentimes they don't change the name or the game titles. They reuse the old titles. So this becomes problematic because you have game titles with multiple game releases on different platforms, and just different with the countries as well. So this was a lot of things, a lot of problems that I have worked around. And this brings me to my next point, which is this entire process was really chaotic. It was basically fire everywhere. And just let me show you how this entire thing was looking like, right? So first thing first, when we were scraping for video games titles, we actually looked at Wikipedia, right? So over here, you have just like 1 year. So 2012, you have like a list of games, publisher, release date, platform, and so on and so forth, right? So this is pretty straightforward. But this doesn't give us all of the information that we needed, right? So we needed to scrape this for each of the game year. So you have like 2012, and then over here you have like 2022. So Wikipedia doesn't keep everything in one page. So which is why we had to do something like this, where is a very messy workbook, but I'm just showing you the chaos behind everything. We have like one sheet for each of the year. And you can see if you copy and paste in Excel, right, you have all these things over here. But I needed to find out what this URL is, because I want to script the information within that additional URL. And what I mean is, let's say if I go into this one, this is just one of the games that I've been playing recently. This is a link from probably one of the titles in here. And I needed more information like the developers, the publishers, the platform, the genres, and the release date and stuff like that, which is not within here. All right. And what I had to do was, after copy and pasting into Excel, I needed to write a macro. Thankfully, this is pretty straightforward. So this is just, getting a URL from the hyperlink of that cell itself. And with that, we can actually do something like that, where we can just grab the URL from the cell. Right. So we repeated this process with all the different years. And I probably removed some of them because they were like duplicates. But after I had all of this, what I had was a full list of games that were released from 1990s to 2024, and their URLs, the exact Wikipedia URLs for each of the games. And the next step was to run a web scrape for each of these links so that we can actually grab a full raw table like this, where you have the URL, you have the developers, publishers, directors, and so on and so forth, with the platform releases and genres. And you can see there are a lot of blanks, right? And what happens is that sometimes the let me see, where is it? Right. So if you go here, right, sometimes the information from this page is incomplete. So you probably have some games that have like developers, publishers, directors, producers, designers, and so on and so forth. You might have another game that don't have all of these additional columns, right? So you probably just have like developers, publishers, genres, and platforms. And this caused inconsistency with the web scraping. It took me a very long time to wrap my head around it, because I needed to kind of bypass certain or put in dummy values so that they kind of skip certain fields. But that's one. And then I had to repeat the process with Metacritic, right? So Metacritic is a bit simpler. I mean, it's a top-based kind of data set where you have like the image, the title, the description, and the meta score. But similarly to Wikipedia, I need to do it in 2 steps. So the first step is pulling out all of this data in like 600 over pages. And then for individual titles, I need to go in, I need to grab the must play tag, I need to grab the meta score, the user scores, the critic reviews, and the user reviews. And that's just for these two sites. And then lastly, I had to do the same thing for How Long to Beat. Right. So How Long to Beat, similarly, you have kind of like a tile base with all the games and the average hours that people play for each of the different styles. But this is very basic, and I wanted to grab more information. So which also means that I need to go to individual titles to pull in things over here, like the average, the mean, the kind of the speed run and leisure. So with all of this in place, I finally have this kind of this master list. This is just an example, but I needed to firstly map all of the titles from site to site, and I needed to clean up all of this inconsistency. So I started off doing one by one, like kind of cleaning up the genre. So this is the genres from combined Wikipedia and Metacritic, and you can see that there's a lot of different permutations, and these are basically the same. It's just a slight difference in like spelling and formatting, and it's very annoying because you can't actually like you there's no straight and easy way of just putting them together, except for manually editing all of them. So I had to manually edit all of them just to make sure that they are consistent. And we did the same thing with developers and publishers as well. The one thing I would point out as well here is that if you look at platforms, because of how Wikipedia actually has the data, right? You have this data in a table format, which means that the platforms are broken down by a new line. So if we go back to the Excel and we just double click on it, you can see that this actually doesn't return in one line, it returns in multiple lines. So then again, I had to run a couple of macros to remove the space, remove the new lines, and just put them and concatenate them with a comma in just one row of data. So you can imagine how much work goes into, which is why this took a good 6 to 7 months to complete, because it's just too many things to go through. But finally, after all of that chaos, we arrived with this final masterpiece, I would say. We have the game titles, the first release date, and all of the different things here, right? The one thing I kept separate was I kept the original platform long form. So you have like the long string over here, but we did have some calculations here to just check if the platform was PC, Nintendo Switch, whether it was handheld, PlayStation, Xbox, and so forth. So this would allow us to build a robust data set for people to actually visualize in Tableau, because you can't actually visualize anything from all of this long string. It's just too hard. And then I kept the original genres as well, just in case we needed to kind of roll back on changes and stuff like that. But we did create like 2 additional columns, one for the main genres. So you can see here, it's very clean up, which took quite a while. And then the sub-genres of that main genres.
Louis, we're still seeing the Wikipedia page.
Oh, I am sorry. Let me see. Oh, yes, probably because I'm not sharing the window itself. There we go. I'm so sorry about that. But saying that, this was the original Excel that we had to kind of with the URL and everything. You guys probably didn't see it just now. And then I had to kind of data over here. So over discrepancies of like how they name the genres in like the different games and all. So all of this were manual cleaning for publishers to this one, which is the final piece. All right. And if I can talk all day about this, but this basically took out at least, I would say about 60, maybe 70, 80%. But with this, let me just go back to the work. Let me see this one, right? And just show you this slide. So the challenges we faced, these were the steps that we took to kind of alleviate or address some of them. So for different naming conventions, we added the year to the title. So for example, if we go back to the Mortal Kombat example earlier on, we basically put Mortal Kombat 1992 or Mortal Kombat 2011, just so that both of them appears as a unique value. And then for titles using the same name that were not from the same publisher, so that there are cases like that as well, we had to create a unique GamesNightViz ID. So this ID is something that is probably not anywhere you would see. It's just for us to do mapping across Metacritic, Wikipedia data, and how long to beat. And then for the genre categorization, we did have some help from ChatGPT to kind of reclassify some of them, because it's really, I would say, subjective, because a lot of the developers these days, they create games that are a blend between genres. So it's really hard to make a stand on where they actually land, which is why you have inconsistency between like Metacritic and Wikipedia as well. But to our very best knowledge and from my expertise in the industry, we managed to, I would say, go through a lot of them reasonably. And then for the data granularity problems with the platforms, developers, and publishers, we basically flattened everything into the long string, and then we created additional Boolean values to that were referencing all of that, right? And then for the last bit about re-releases, remasters, and remakes, what we did was that we just took the first release date. So for example, if we go back to the example we had on Final Fantasy VII, the re-release on PC and mobile were ignored. We basically took the original 1992 release date, And the remake that happened in 2020, that was a separate new game. We treat it as an additional new game. So that was what we did. And with this, we have, like I said, this GamesNightViz ID, where we can now keep a fact table and a dimension table, right? So over here, you have this fact table with all unique values of the game titles, first release date, the game synopsis, which I can actually show you this as well. We use ChatGPT to kind of help us to summarize a little bit, because there were some titles that didn't have description when we tried to web scrape from Wikipedia and Metacritic. And unfortunately for ChatGPT, you can't just throw it a entire 1,000 to 5,000 lines of code and get them to do every single one of them. You need to do it in batches. So we needed to do like just putting it 20 at a time and, copying it back to the worksheet itself. So it took a very long process, as you can see from here. So this is just a snippet of how it happened. And then we have the Metascore table with all the scores, the critic reviews, the user reviews, but we just kept the ID so that we can do a left join. Similarly for the thumbnails and the play. So with all of this in place, if we go back to Tableau, you would see, let's see, just give it a moment. You guys are seeing the Tableau page, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Just to make sure. Okay, so over here, you see that this is the dimension table with all your games, first release, URL, and so on and so forth. And all of this is just a left join by the GNV ID, right? So you have the playtime, you have the thumbnail, you have the Metascore, right? And this is how we ended up with this dashboard. And we wanted this to be a kind of like a robust data set that people can just go in, because everyone has different favorite games and resonance with different game characters. And this was something that we wanted to future-proof our future challenges, because if, let's say, down the line we decided to do a challenge on primarily Mario, we can use this data set and just do a left join on the GamesNightViz ID and have additional information for Mario to kind of give this data set a little bit of refresh. So if you download, you can find this dashboard over at my Tableau Topic profile. But if you download it, you can see that we've tried to make this as accessible to people as possible. So if you hover over, you have like description of comments of what each individual measure of dimension is. So for example, what does a developer mean, right? So this is a string value to indicate the developer or the studio that created the video games. If you hover over here, like say release on console, what does this mean? So this is a Boolean value to indicate if a video game has been released at least once in any of the home-based consoles. And I have some examples over there like Nintendo, GameCube, so on and so forth. And then if you hover down, you have like the play times. So what does all play styles mean? What does completionist means? What does main and extra means? If you hover over, you have a description on what this is. So this is, for example, a numerical value representing the average minutes to complete main story and side quests. And this is also kind of a callback to where the data is coming in from, a combination of all the time submitted by the community to the web repository, how long to beat. And the same thing for Metascore as well, right? So with this, we hope that people can actually use this to, create something new. So you can easily just, pull in like number of games and let's say genres, and you have something like this, very easy. And you can just play around with like different things, all right? So like if we take a look at this, this is just showing like by genres. If we kind of want to see if any of these games will release on console, you just drop the color. You can see, wait, this is actually a dimension. right? So yes or no, whether they were released on consoles. You can also see like the average, let's say we're talking about the main story, so the average game time for each of the genres, right? You have like this information as well. So the formats for all of this has also been done. So if I think probably Lisa will go through this as well, but we did have a lot of we place additional care on how we want to represent each of the values. So like say, for example, the playtime, we have already by default set it to minutes. So no matter how you actually pull it to the dashboard, it will always show in minutes. Similarly for, let's say, if the Metacritic score, right, and you put it here, right, it will show this is supposed to be the average. Let me see, where's the average? Yeah, all right. So you can see that this doesn't have a decimal point, and this is with the default formatting as well, right? Because the meta score doesn't have a decimal point. And this doesn't have like the suffix of minutes. So it really put a lot of care on how we represent each of the dimension and measures. And we just hope that this will be really useful for everyone to jump on. So that is, in a nutshell, the history of the GamesNightViz starter kit. Yeah, I know it probably took me a lot longer to go through the entire thing, but hopefully you guys enjoy it.
Thank you so much, Lewis, for taking us through the whole starter pack, starting from telling us about your journey, how it all came up, and how you have actually weaved your passion as well as games and data together. I think that's really cool. And thank you so much for taking us through the data set. I think it's quite interesting, and so many of us would like to go through it. Myself as well, would like to go through it and like build a viz out of it finally. Maybe I'll find something I've played at least. So it's a whole great set of data set. So thank you so much for that work for the community, Lewis. And thank you so much for bringing this whole topic with all of us. It's almost midnight for you, past midnight actually. But thank you so much for doing this. We have a few questions for you.
Mhm.
Okay. So there's a question around did this data cleaning and data preparation, all that process in Tableau Prep, or was it all done in Excel with macros and formulas and other processes?
I wish I could say that I've used Tableau Prep for this, but unfortunately I use a lot of Excel because of the sheer amount of manual checking and manipulation I needed to do to change like the genres, the publishers, the platforms. You could probably do it in Prep as well, but I just found it easier in Excel for
I
this
think
particular use set.
most of the time I've seen with, like, let's say you have movies or all these data sets, they generally have like two or three genres because they are kind of mixed, and it's hard to whiz sometimes because, let's say, what is the primary, because there's no ratio actually. So like doing all of that part and cleaning, I think that's a big salute, man. Like manual cleaning. If somebody tells me to do the manual cleaning, you'll see me far off that end. I'll be like, okay, please, I don't know you. Okay, so Graham has a question like, will you be sharing the video game data set with us? It's already out there. Graham, what we'll do is I'll put a link to Lewis' workbook on Tableau Public, and from there you can definitely use it.
Yeah. So on that, right? Another quick tip for you guys. I think you guys, some of you might already know. But the GamesNightViz starter kit is not a huge data set per se. It's just like 15,000 of rows. So you can actually click on this view data. And if you want, you can actually download, like say the master list. You can download like each of this in Excel, and it gives you the data in the raw table, if that's what you are referring to.
Yeah, I think that will help to get all the fact tables, and then everyone can play themselves.
Yep.
Okay, so how did you add the description? So
That is a very good question.
Yeah.
You can do it
that,
really quick here. So how we did it was that you can basically just right click on this, and over here you have this default properties comments, and if you click on this, you can do like add in a lot of different contexts that you want to build for this, and when people hover over the dimension itself, this pops up.
Okay.
Yep.
I think we're good then. We have covered all the questions. So thank you so much again, Louis, for doing this and for sharing this whole story with us. That was quite great. Thank you so much. It was great to meet you again, and hopefully we'll meet in person soon as well.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me.
Okay, take care. Okay, so guys, this is just the first part of the whole night or the evening, whatever you would like to say. Next, we have Lisa. So I'll just share my screen. Okay. So now we have Lisa. You can find her on Twitter by at Lisa Trescott, LisaTrescott, and she's a research analyst at Maricosta College, where she supports the efforts of the college's student equity and achievement programs. Lisa actually started using Tableau in 2017 and was immediately hooked. So I think that's for all of us. Since then, she has become a Tableau visionary, public ambassador. She also co-leads the California Community Colleges Tableau User Group, and she won the Iron Viz Global Championship in 2021. It was virtual, I remember. I think it was my first or second virtual conference, and I still remember the Viz, all of those three Viz. So it was quite exciting. And fun fact about her: Lisa is a mom to two fur babies and one human baby. When she is not visiting, she loves arts and crafts and watching trash reality TV and playing good board games. That's interesting. And today she is going to take us through very interesting topic, as well as I missed it. I wasn't able to attend it at TC this year. So it is at the speed of Iron Viz tips for faster builds. So I'll hand over to Lisa, and we'll learn all of those tips now. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Awesome. Thank you. And it looks like my, oh, okay, there it is. I couldn't share my screen there for a second. Okay, yeah, so as Prasan said, I'm going to be talking all about how to go at the speed of Iron Viz and work more efficiently and quickly in Tableau. They already introduced me, so I'm not going to do much here. But like Prasan said, I was a contestant in Iron Viz back in 2021. And when I won, it was all virtual. So typically, I think people think of the Iron Viz champions like this, right? We've got the last two, Chris and Paul here. But I didn't get this, right? I did not hold the Iron Viz trophy over my head as confetti rained down upon me. What I got instead was this, which I think is probably just as good. This is a real tweet from the Information Lab. I just appreciate so much that they found the most flattering still frame to tweet out about. But whether or not you take part in Iron Viz live on the stage or virtually, you don't get to a moment like this without getting a lot faster in Tableau. And so back in 2021, this is the Viz that I created in just 20 minutes. It has 14 different sheets with custom tooltips, with Spotify playlist interactivity and parameter actions and pages interactivity and custom colors. And there's a lot to do here in just 20 minutes. And so your workflow has to be lean and mean. And going through Iron Viz, that's exactly what I learned to do, is just have a lean and mean workflow, not just for, speed vizzing, but also just at work and every day working in Tableau. And that's what I want to talk about today. I'm going to talk about 5 main areas where you can kind of tighten up your workflow. I'll talk about formatting your workbooks, how to navigate the workspace efficiently, how to work well with color, tricks for writing calculations and creating parameters, and then ultimately building a dashboard. Now, this presentation is pretty much entirely a Tableau demonstration. It's got a lot in here. I'm going to talk quickly because I know Ojo is going after me, so I might talk a little faster than normal. But have no fear. There is a dashboard published on my Tableau public account that recaps all these tips. And I also have a blog on my website, lisatrescott.com, where you can find a recap of these as well. So without further ado, let's jump in to Tableau and talk about workbook formatting. So one of the first things that you will undoubtedly see every Iron Viz contestant do is apply workbook level formatting. And I did this in Iron Viz, and I do it in every single one of my workbooks at work. So what I mean by that is, if you go up here to format and select workbook, you get a side panel over here with formatting options that you can set universally for your whole workbook. So there's a lot of bang for your buck here. Even though it's just fonts and lines, those are just the 2 things you can do. This applies to everything. So it really saves you time and not having to do this on multiple sheets. So this first option up here is the font. You could change your font for the whole workbook. I tend to leave it in Tableau because I know it renders well everywhere, but you could change it to anything you want here. And this would apply to everything in the workbook. I'll undo that. With the worksheets, I want to bring my font size up. So now every worksheet will have a size 15 font. I'll bring my titles up, since again, this is a presentation. So I want to make them bigger and bold, and maybe I want them to be blue. And now every single one of my titles will have that formatting applied. There's also this option down here to modify your lines. So I hate grid lines. I don't like them on any of my worksheets. I never want to see them. And luckily, I can modify my workbook to never show them. So under grid lines, if you just click this little caret, there's the option to turn them off. So now I'll never have to see a grid line in this workbook. And then something else that I think is easy to miss is there's this option for more, where you can actually modify all of your line types in Tableau. And most of them have the same options that you just saw for grid line, turn on and off, or change the color or formatting. But some of them don't, right? Like access ticks, you can't turn them off. I don't know why. But if you want to turn something off in Tableau here or anywhere else, you can just turn the color opacity down to 0. When you take the pigment out, you've essentially turned it off. So that's the workbook level formatting. Let's talk about formatting a sheet, because oftentimes you want to apply formatting to just one sheet. So usually to do that, I'll just right click on any white space and select format. And then you get another side panel over here, which formatting that just applies to the sheet. You can see that this blue size 24 bold is coming in for this worksheet, because that's what I did at the workbook level. But if I change this to pink here, this title will now be pink, but all my other ones will stay with the workbook formatting. So anything you do at the sheet level is going to override what you did at the workbook. You can also modify your alignment. So I typically like to left justify my headers. So you can do that here just by left justifying, and now that will happen to the whole sheet. You can change the color. I usually turn it off because I do like lots of layering stuff, but I'll change it to something that you can see. We'll make it this light pink. Rows and columns, borders, dividers, I usually turn those off too. But again, so you can see them, I'll make them really large and in charge. We'll make this one a big bold pink, and we'll make this one a big bold purple. And let's say now I've got this lovely sheet formatting that I want to apply to all of my sheets. Well, if I want to create a new sheet, I'm going to hit Control M. That's the shortcut for creating a new sheet. And it's nice because it just creates the sheet right next to where I was already working. I want to copy that formatting that I just did on the sheet formatting. I'm going to right click on sheet formatting, select copy formatting. And then I'm just going to paste it here on sheet 7. And you can see all those lovely formatting choices are here. And we didn't have to do all those selections again. So typically what I will do is I will format one sheet exactly how I want it and say it's this. And then I will call this sheet dummy format. I'll probably color code it by right clicking it and making it yellow. And that way, when I'm 50 sheets into my workbook and I want this formatting again, I can easily find it quickly in kind of the sea of all of my sheets, and then just copy and paste that formatting again. You can also adjust formatting for your measures. And so Lewis just touched on this as well. But here I have some of sales by month. And you can see sales is on label, but it is coming in as a number, right? Tableau doesn't know that it's money. So I have to tell it, right? I want it to format it as currency. And if I were to go into the pill over here that's on label and format it, this formatting would only apply to this worksheet, right? Instead, like Lewis showed you, if you right click on a pill, you have the ability to modify all these different default properties. We'll just talk about number formatting today. But when you select that, you have the option to customize however you want, like decimal places, how the negative values look, what display units you have. You can even add prefixes and suffixes. And this is actually a huge time saver when I'm trying to do like color coding with positive and negative numbers. It makes no sense here, but I'll just put a little arrow just so you can see what's possible in terms of prefix and suffix. And we'll click OK. And now you can see everywhere you have sales here, it's coming in with that formatting. But if I, again, hit Control M and drag sales onto this sheet, now the formatting is the same here as well. So this is really helpful, not just for speed, but for consistency, right? Because you can actually set default properties for multiple pills at one time. So if sales and profit are both currency, so if I hit Control and select both of them, I can set the default properties for both, right? So I can, again, it's really good for consistency because then you don't have $1 amount with a decimal place and another without. So it's really good for speed and keeping things nice in your workbook. Now, even with all of that, sometimes you just want to format a pill, right? You formatted your workbook and your worksheet. But in this case, I have a profit ratio by state. And you can see I did that workbook level formatting that brought my font size up to 15, and it's cutting off these titles here. So I need to fix that. And so I'm going to go up here to state and right click format. And over here, we're going to change our font. We'll bring the size down, and I'll zoom out so you can see. We'll bring it down to 9, and I'll make it purple. And let's say, you know, I like this, but I'm still thinking this is a lot of text for an end user to digest. And so I prefer to use an abbreviated state. So if I go over here, I might think, well, I'm just going to drag and drop state onto my viewer. And I'm going to replace state with the state abbreviation by dragging and dropping it. And when I do that, my chart blows up. So the sort goes away. All that header formatting I did goes away, and I would have to redo it. So let's undo that. Instead of dragging and dropping to replace a pill, if you just double click in here into the pill and start typing whatever field you want to replace this with and hit enter, you've now replaced the pill with a new variable, but you've retained all of that formatting, because when you replace what's inside the pill still stays formatted and just what's inside it changes. So that's kind of how I like to think of this, right? When you drag and drop a new pill on top, that's when things go out the window. And so what I typically do at work is I will create a view or a chart that I have, and I'll make it exactly how I want it. And then I will duplicate it, right? There's this handy duplicate icon right up here. And then I'll just double click in here and I'll start typing other stuff to make new charts, right? And so I'll do that as many times as you need. And it's a really quick way to create lots of charts that look exactly the same. So that's all about formatting. Let's talk about how to navigate the workspace efficiently. I've been doing it quite a bit already, but I just want to talk a little bit more intentionally about it. So Tableau, as you probably know, defaults to showing all of your sheets as tabs. You can actually tab through these by hitting Control Tab, and it will go through all the different tabs you have in your workbook. You also have these little icons down here in the right. The default view is the one on the far right. But you can hit this little film strip to show you little thumbnails for each of your chart or your vizzes, which is helpful, especially when you have really long sheet names. There's also this, what I like to call the waffle. If you click on that, you can see all the sheets in your workbook, and you can actually move them around. You could resort them, or you can jump to one just by double clicking on it. And then you'll be in, then you'll be in this view. And a lot of times when I'm on a sheet, I forget where I've used it. I know it's in a dashboard somewhere, but where is that dashboard? You can just right click on the sheet, select used in, and then jump quickly to whatever dashboard you used it in. And then you can quickly go back to that worksheet by hitting this go to sheet icon as well. So just kind of quicker ways to jump around your workbook. So as I've been going through this, you've probably noticed that all of my tabs are color coded down here. I do that for two reasons. One, I'm kind of a freak about staying organized. If you get one soft skill from this presentation, I hope that it is staying organized, because that's going to save you time in any software that you work in, the more organized you are. So here we have all these green tabs. What I'll typically do is I'll make a dashboard and I'll color code that green. And then all the sheets that go on it are also color coded green. So all the green sheets go on the green dashboard. I'm also doing this color coding for filtering. So let's go over to this filter tab. And I've got state or province right up here on filters. And let's say I want to apply that to all those green sheets. Well, I'm going to right click it, apply to worksheets, and select selected worksheets. And then what's super handy is Tableau actually retains that little color coding that you did right here. So I can really quickly see that I'm getting all my green sheets. I don't have to worry about like, what's the name of the sheet I want to apply this to. Click OK. And now I've got that filter applied to my green sheets. Now, a lot of times I'll apply a filter and then later on down the road, I don't need that filter anymore. And so I go to take it off this sheet. If I just drag it off, it takes it off of this sheet, but nothing else, right? It's still on my green sheets. So instead, we can actually use Tableau's default behavior to our advantage here. Instead of going to selected worksheets and unchecking all those the green sheets like we applied it, if I make this a data source filter and then take it off, it takes it off of all those sheets. So data source filters, when you move them from one sheet, removes it from all the sheets. So that's a nice way to kind of use Tableau's default behavior to your advantage. So let's bring state back up here because I want to talk about this filter interface. So I'm going to uncheck all of these. Sometimes you may just have a selection of things you want to filter by. Maybe I want Alabama to Delaware. If I hold Shift and hit Alabama and then Delaware, it selects them all. And then I can actually just hit the space bar on my keyboard and that will select them, which is really nice because I can do this everywhere, right? If I'm just clicking on the text, I don't have to worry about getting my cursor in the checkbox and it will quickly select them. The other thing you can do with the filter interface is you can actually copy paste from Excel. So I do this all the time. I work at a college, so I always have lists of student IDs that I need to bring into Tableau. And so you can actually just have your list in Excel and copy it. And then if you go back into Tableau, instead of going to this select from list, go to this custom value list and paste, and it will bring in all of those states from your list. So really fast way to just copy paste out of Excel. So let's talk about working with dimensions and measures. So as you know, they all live over here on the data pane. And one thing that I love most about this data pane is this little filter icon. If you click this, you can filter by lots of different types of fields. I typically use this for my calculations, right? I want to quickly find all of the calculated fields in my workbook. You can do that there. You can also type after the little C colon, right? Maybe I want to see, well, what calculated fields involve state in the name, and then I can quickly find that. So really fast way to find things. You can also just search for things by name. If you're out and about in Tableau, you can just hit Control F and it will bring your cursor back into that search field. So let's say I want to bring my category and subcategory onto this view. What I'll typically do when I need to bring multiple pills onto a view is I will control click them and then drag them all out at the same time. Or you can just double click a pill and that will bring it out as well. All faster than just single clicking things and bringing them out. Now, let's say I want to make this into a heat map. I want to see average sales by month. Well, I'm going to need to grab order date first to get my month. And if I were to just grab order date and click and drag it, right, like left click and drag onto columns, Tableau is going to default to showing me a year. That's its default date part. But I don't want that. I want a month. So let's undo that. If I actually grab order date with a right click and drag, Tableau gives me a really handy pop-up, right? It says, oh, you must not want my default. What do you want? And in this case, I can just quickly double click on month, and then there it is. It's a quick way to get a new default date part. Same thing with sales, right? If I were to click sales and drag it out there, Tableau is going to default to sum of sales, but I want average average. So if I right click, drag that onto my view, again, I'm going to get a pop-up and I just double click average and there it is. So I wanted to make this into a heat map. Let's change this mark type to a square. And I like having sales on label, but I also want it on color to color code this heat map. So I'm going to hold control and just drag average sales to color, and that's going to duplicate the pill. And that's anywhere. That's not just on color, right? I can control click anywhere and duplicate a pill wherever I want, right? So a really fast way to create duplication. Now, let's say lastly, I want to put some subtotals on this heat map. Well, going through the analysis dropdown is a lot of clicks. It's actually really fast if you just go to the analytics pane and grab totals. And as soon as you start to drag this out, Tableau says, where do you want these totals? And in my case, I wanted sub, drop them on there, and I quickly have subtotals. If you wanted all three, subtotals, column, and row totals, you can just double click this and it'll bring all of them onto your view at one time. So much faster than using the analysis dropdown. So we have this heat map and Tableau uses its default color palette, which is fine. But sometimes you may want to use a custom color palette. You may have some branding guidelines or a color palette that you need to use for work. So let's talk about bringing in some custom colors to Tableau. When I first started using Tableau, I was really afraid of this because I don't code. I don't know code. And when I realized how to bring in a custom color palette, which is you go to your Tableau repository, go to your preferences file, you can right click it and open with a notepad. And when you do that, you get this, right? It's a lot of code. It's basically all of these are separate color palettes that I've brought in. You can see MCC is in front of a lot of them because I work at Miracosta College. And so, like I said, I was really afraid in the beginning to use this. But what I found was this amazing color palette generating tool that I found through SQL Bell. If you're not following her, definitely give her a follow. I can put her link in the chat later. But she puts out a lot of great content, and she shared this tool in one of her color videos. And basically what you do is you just name it, right? So you got to name your color palette. And this presentation was for Tableau Conference 2024. So I called it Data 24. Then you just add colors to the middle. And so this was the color palette for the conference. So I just copy pasted the hex codes. And then and then it creates 3 different types of color palettes, like a regular, just 2 color swatches, sequential and diverging. And then the great part is that it spits out all the code. So it spits out the code for all of these color palettes it creates. You can pick and choose what you want. If you don't want all of those, you just grab the ones you want, copy it, and then paste it back into that preferences file. And then you have it in Tableau to work with. So let's use that now. So I'm going to bring region onto color. And again, Tableau is going to go default on me. But let's go in and go into our edit colors interface. And you can see all of these default color palettes that Tableau comes loaded with, everything down to lightning watermelon. Here is a Tableau color palette. But now we have that lovely Data 24 color palette in here because I put it in my preferences file. And there we go. Now, one thing I didn't mention when I had the tool open, but I'll just tell you now, is I put those colors in the order of blue, orange, purple, pink. And that's the order that they show up here. The order you put them in the code is the order they're going to show up. And that was intentional because I want central to be blue, east orange, south purple, west pink. When you have them in the order you want to assign them, you can just hit this assign palette button and it will assign them in that order. So if you have things that you're assigning the same color to over and over, definitely put it in the order that you want to assign. You can also see what your color palette's going to look like before you exit this window just by hitting apply. So if I hit apply, I can see what this color palette will look like. If I don't like this, I can then go and modify it, right? If I want to try lightning watermelon, I could go back and do that, right? So it's really nice because then you don't have to close and reopen this window. But I want this color palette, right? This was the Data 24 colors. And so anytime you have something on your color shelf, Tableau is going to give you this little color legend. But this is actually a lot more powerful than just telling you what each color means, right? You can actually right-click on this, right-click on one of these. You could edit aliases, right? So maybe I want this to be East region, right? You can edit the alias there. So now it's East region. You could also sort. So maybe I want West at the top here. So I can just click here and sort. I can also filter here just by right-clicking, and I can either keep only West or exclude it. If I exclude it, you'll see I now have a region over here on my filters. So it's a quick way to add a filter. You can also use this to just quickly go back into that color palette picker, right? I can just double click on that and bring that interface back up. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with that color palette, not just for colors, but size as well and shape. So all of this is great when you have a variable on color, but there are so many times when you don't, right? Sometimes you just have a single color that you want to color chart in Tableau. And when you go to edit those colors, the interface is very different, right? There's nothing on the color shelf. So you just get kind of this Tableau default colors and then your most recently used colors. And then you can select this more colors option and you'll get a standard color palette picker. You could paste HTML or hex codes in here. But my favorite thing about this interface is this pick screen color. It's essentially just an eyedropper tool. And so when I click that, anything I hover over is going to show up here in this rectangle. But I love this so much because I can actually leave Tableau, right? I'm actually on my PowerPoint over here on my other screen and hovering over different color swatches. So you could have something up on your other screen that you want to grab the color palette from, click on it, and then it's here. And now let's say I have this orange. I want to use it all the time, and I don't want to have to do the screen picker every time. I'm just going to drag this over and add it to my custom colors. And now it will be here as a little color swatch forever and always, even when you close and reopen Tableau. And you can see I have tons of work color palette colors here because I use this all the time. All right, so let's click OK, and now this is orange. Now, another trick that I want to talk about is something that I learned from Autumn Batani. She's another Tableau visionary. And what she suggested is if you have a single color chart, use a dummy variable on color. So in this case, this dummy variable is just literally the word color in quotation marks. It's having no influence on my data. It's a dummy variable. But I've put that on the color shelf on this chart, and this chart. Because now this is another place we're leveraging Tableau's default behavior. Because here, if I go to edit my colors, I have access to my color palettes again, right? So I can go down to data 24. Let's just click assign palette to blue and click OK. And now, because Tableau retains the color that you've assigned each variable, right, in this case, a dummy variable, color changes on this chart, and this chart. So if you're still playing around with your color, or maybe you have a picky end user or a picky boss, and they don't know what colors, they want you to change them, this is a really great way to change multiple charts at one time. So that's having a dummy variable on color, but sometimes you might want an actual calculated field on your colors. And so that's what we're going to talk about now. We'll shift into writing calculations. So here I have that same chart. And let's say I want to create a calculated field to really highlight where the max sum of sales is in this view, right? I want to make it really obvious to my user. I'm going to open the calculated field window in my favorite way. There's multiple ways to open it, but this is absolutely my favorite hotkey in Tableau. It is Alt-A-C. That will open up this calculated field window without ever having to leave your keyboard. So first, let's name this. I'm going to call this C.max color because it's going to be a variable we put on color to indicate the max. And you might be wondering at this point, what's with all the C dots, right? You might have seen them in my data pane. That's a naming convention that I like to use where anytime I write a calculated field, I put a C dot in front of it. It helps keep them organized together in the data pane. So you can quickly find them. It's a real quick trigger to yourself that that's a calculated field. If I have a calculated field that works with a parameter, I'll put a P dot in front of it. I have a lot of different naming conventions. So I would strongly suggest you come up with something that works for you to kind of keep track of fields that way. But in this case, I want to compare sum of sales to the window max sum of sales, which is just the maximum value of sales in this window. And luckily for me, I already have sum of sales up here in columns, so I'm not going to bother to type it. I'm just going to drag and drop this into the calculated field window. And then I'm going to say, does this equal window max? So I'll start typing WI, and then you've got this nice auto completion, right? Definitely leverage this when you can, so you don't have to type as much. And again, I just want sum of sales, so I'll drag that in. So I only typed 3 things on my keyboard to write this whole calculated field. So definitely leveraging auto completion and drag and drop when you can is going to be a time saver. So this is a pretty straightforward calculated field, but a lot of times we have calculations that are not, right? Sometimes they can become very complex. And what typically happens is I write out these really complex calculations, I go to use them and they don't work. And then I spend all this time trying to troubleshoot and pick them apart. So one hack I have for that is if you're trying to see what one piece of your calculation is doing to troubleshoot, you can actually just highlight that piece of the calc and drag it onto label. And then Tableau will put the output of that portion of your calculations on the label. So I can see, well, this is what Tableau thinks the window max sum of sales is. And if I hover over the actual max, I can see, yep, that matches. So it's a really good way to kind of troubleshoot. You also have this handy apply button, just like we did on the color picker. So I can actually apply this calculation while I still have this window open, and Tableau will create it and I can use it, right? I can actually drag it onto color, see if it's doing what I think it is, and it is. But maybe if it wasn't, or maybe I decide I want to change this, maybe I want this to be window min, right? Maybe I could type that and hit apply, see how that changes it. So you can kind of build the plane while you're flying it in a really quick and efficient way. So that's writing one calculated field in a calculated field window. But every Iron Viz contestant since learning this trick from Lindsay Poulter has used it. You can actually write multiple calculated fields in a single calculated field window. Thanks to Lindsay Poulter, is a huge contribution to Iron Viz contestants. Basically, when you are in Iron Viz, you get the data set ahead of time and you're able to write out your calculations before you get to the stage. And so typically, we all have big, massive notepads that look like this, where we have all these calculations written. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to hit Alt-AC to open up that calculated field window again. And I'm going to paste all those in here. And here's what we have. We have 3 different calculations, right? Here's a calc. And right above it, you'll notice there's this commented line. You just comment a line with 2 backslashes. This is going to be the title for the calculation below it. And then the same thing for all of these, right? So all you have to do is highlight a calculation with that commented line and drag it out of this window and into your data pane. And then Tableau creates it. So I'm going to do that again for this top 10 profit and top 10 sales. Oops, did I do it? I don't think I actually dropped it. There it is. I didn't drop either of these. So now you can see I have 3 different calculations that I wrote in just one window. And I'm sure you're thinking to yourself, cool, I'm not in Iron Viz. I don't have notepads full of calculations. Well, I would actually say you should, right? If you have data sets you're working with all of the time, you're probably writing the same calculated fields a lot of the time, like especially at work if you have one main data set. So I have a notepad of calcs that I use for work. But not every calc is one that I have pre-planned. And so typically when I would use this when I'm writing calcs on the fly is something like this, where I have 2 that are very similar, right? So in this case, I would just write one calculation like this, copy it, paste it, and then change the pieces of it that I want. And then you can have those 2 calculations. So that's how you would write multiple calcs in one window, but sometimes you don't even want to open that window, and you actually don't have to for one particular type of calculation. So for quick LODs, if you want to fix a measure to a dimension, you can just grab that measure by holding Control and dragging it on top of the dimension you want. Let's say I want to have a column in this view of sales for each category. So I'm going to Control drag sales onto category. Oops, I don't think I did it. And then it's going to create this calculated field, which if I right click in here and edit it, is an LOD. And it's good because if you have one measure to fix to one dimension, but it also just helps kind of start the LOD syntax. And so, that's a lot of, mustachios and parentheses and whatnot. So it's a great way to kind of start one. And just so you can see that it does in fact work, we've got the sum of sales by category for each one of these. And so lastly, I know the time is going very quickly. In terms of creating parameters, when I first started working in Tableau, if I wanted to create a string parameter, I would go and I would type it all in. But that is a huge time suck. And I realized you can do it much faster. Let's say I want to create a parameter for state. If I right click state and go to create parameter, Tableau is going to do all that work for me. It's going to name my parameter. It's going to set the data type. And more importantly, it's going to bring in every value that I have in my data. So that's cool. But what if I only want a subset of states? Maybe I just want the central region, right, to be a parameter. Well, you can actually do what we did for filtering, which is copy and paste out of Excel. So here I have those central region states. I'm going to copy these. I'm going to go back to Tableau, and everything in you is going to say, well, I'm going to put my cursor in value where I actually see a cursor and hit paste, Control V. That doesn't actually work. literally click anywhere else. Anywhere else in this whole interface, you can hit and, oops, let me remove that. And hit paste, Control V, and it will paste your list. So just don't click where you think you should click and you'll be in good shape. So that's a really fast way to create parameters. So sometimes when we write calculations and parameters and whatnot, we might not notice until we start building out our dashboard that we have errors with them, right? So here is a dashboard that I created and I see, uh-oh, California and my hex map is not where it should be, right? It should be nestled in here. So I've got an issue with the calculation on columns for this hex map. Well, you can actually edit that calculated field right from your dashboard. So to do that, click on any sheet. It does not have to be the sheet that you're editing the field in. Go up to Analysis and Edit Calculated Field, and you'll see all of your calculations here that you can edit. So in this case, I want to edit my columns. I look at California, I say, oh, yep, typo. That should be a 2, not a 0. Change it. And now I just changed that calculation right here without having to jump back to that worksheet. So let's now talk about putting together a dashboard like this. I'm going to basically recreate portions of this dashboard to show you kind of my workflow. And one thing I like to leverage all the time is copy paste. So you can actually copy paste dashboard objects, which are these things, right? Anything down here in an object. As long as it doesn't have a chart or like a filter menu in it, you can copy paste it. So to do that, you can just click, I'm going to copy the title. You can click on this little caret and copy dashboard item, and then create a new dashboard and hit Control V and it bring it in exactly how it was. Now, one thing about copy paste is Tableau will always paste it in floating, right? I'm not going to get into the two camps of tiled and floating. I personally like a hybrid, but I'm going to build this in tiled. And right now this is floating. So to quickly bring this into tiled, I'm just going to hit Shift and it's going to force it into a tiled perspective. Right. So, and that's true anytime. If you're floating and you want to tile something, just hit Shift and it'll temporarily shift into the other mode. And so I'm going to start bringing some charts in, but I'm going to bring them in using containers. So I'm going to bring a container in, and containers, I think I used to lose a lot of time on them because I would lose them, right? I would lose track of them. If I click off of here, I can't see that container anymore. I don't even really know it's there. So one of the first things I do with a container is I will bring a blank object and drop it in that container. And then not only that, I will color that blank so I don't lose it. So to add color, I'm going to have to switch from dashboard to layout. And I'm going to do that with a keyboard shortcut, which is just one letter. It's the letter T. If I hit T, it will toggle to layout. If I hit it again, it'll go back to dashboard. I cannot tell you how often I use this to quickly shift back and forth between those views. So let's add some color. Let's make it a brighter one. And then I'm also going to add a outline to my container, because one thing with containers is when you're putting things in them, it's hard to kind of tell if you've actually gotten your sheet in there. But if it has a border on it, it's really easy. So right now I know the blank is selected because it's got this gray outline and a gray tab. I'm just going to double click that and you'll notice it changed to blue. That means that I now have the parent container selected. Right. So I'm going to actually just change that border. We'll just keep this big black border. So I'm going to hit T to go back. And before I start putting my sheets in this container, I'm actually going to hold Shift to float another container out here. And I'm going to call this a garbage container, because as you probably know, when you start bringing charts into your dashboard, they can come with a lot of garbage, right? And it's not necessarily garbage. It's just stuff you might not want on your view right now. Maybe you want to add it later, or you want to put it somewhere else. Well, if they all go into this container, this garbage container that we floated, you can just select the whole container and delete it and get rid of all those in one click. Now, okay, I'm only going to bring one container on here, and for purposes of this demonstration, this is done. So I'm going to take this blank out. And what you'll notice is that my two charts are kind of freeform, and I can move them around all I want. But I want to fix them. I want them to be distributed evenly no matter what I do. If the dashboard size changes, I want them to be the same. So what I'm going to do is just select the container by double clicking that gray outline to get the parent. And then I'm going to hit distribute contents evenly. And now I can't move these at all, right? Even if I wanted to, because Tableau is fixing them into position. And so I would continue to do this with all of my charts. And then let's start adding some formatting. So here I want to format my different sheets. We'll go ahead and take the border off too of the container. And whenever I apply formatting to my different sheets, I start from the bottom. So I go bottom up, because if I were to add inner padding and then outer padding and then background, I am quickly jumping from each one of those menus. If I were to go top down, which I'll do on this other one, you can see when I select border, I then have to click out to get to background. I have to click out to get to outer padding, right? And so all of these little extra clicks probably don't seem like a lot, but they start to add up, right? So the more you can minimize your clicking, the better. So, okay, let's say we've done that with the second piece now, and we've got this nice layout. And we take our dashboard to our boss, and we look at it for review, and he says, I don't love this hex map. Let's just do a regular map. Well, I went back to my desk, I created the new map, and I drag that new map into the container, and I delete the old one. And then what happens? All of that sheet formatting that I did to the old hex map is gone, and I would have to redo that to this sheet. So let's undo that. Instead of deleting your old map and adding the new one, if I click on the sheet that I want to replace, you'll notice over here, any unused sheet now has this little double-headed arrow. And so you can just swap the sheet. And the beauty with that is that it will swap the sheet and it will retain all of the formatting that you applied, right? And so typically what I will do at work is I will duplicate a dashboard once I have it exactly how I want. And then I will go through and I will just swap out a bunch of sheets. And sometimes you might have to change some more things, but that was just a quick way to get a really fast dashboard, right? So we're almost done. We're now in the QA stage. Our dashboard's built and we're going through and we see, this tooltip has a typo in it because we still don't have spell check, but I have shipping status here. So I need to add an I to shipping. So just like the calculated field, we can actually edit that from this dashboard. In this case, you're going to want to click the sheet that you are editing your tooltip for. Go up to worksheet, go to tooltip, and then here you have your regular tooltip interface. I can add my I and click OK. And now everything is done, right? My dashboard is built. Everything is ready to ship off and go to production. So those are all of my tips. It's a lot, I know, and I went through them very quickly. But what I would suggest is maybe grab 2 or 3 of these tips every week or 2 and start integrating them into your workflow, right? Don't try to do all of these at one time today or tomorrow, because as you start to slowly build them in, they'll become muscle memory and you'll be going at the speed of Iron Viz yourself in no time. So that is everything I have. Again, you can head to lisatrescott.com and find a blog post with all of these tips as well, if you want to kind of get a little recap from them. And I have not been looking to see if there are questions throughout. So let me check that now.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Yeah.
For a great presentation. And I love the tips. And I think you cannot absorb all of them at once if this is the first time for you. So definitely some of the exciting ones I think is for me, just changing that in the bill. I overlap it and that's how I reverse it or switch it. But yes, I think that was really good. That I'll take it from here. And the second thing was the double-headed handle for swapping the sheets. That is also interesting because otherwise, as you mentioned, you have to do all the padding and everything again. And
yeah, huge time. And something I actually didn't show on this one because I trimmed this just to make sure I was in time. But in terms of the pills, you can type over that, not just for text, but if you have like a color field and you want the color to stay the same, as long as the output's the same, like let's say you have 2 true false and you want to keep that color or even shape, you can type over that as well. And it will keep it, which is huge time saver.
Exactly. Because it takes a lot of time if you change it and then you have to do all the formatting again. It's nuts sometimes, almost all the time. Yeah.
Alberto, yes, kind of. I think what you're talking about. So he's asking if there's a way to not lose formatting when you replace a data source. Usually what I have found is are you talking about like color palettes changing, I assume? What I have found is that if you are using calculated fields, on your colors, that's when the colors will change on you. So if you actually put those calculations into your new data source, they won't change. At least in my experience, that's usually what I have found.
I think for me, if we are changing the data source, generally if it is published, then I would go to the from the menu, I'll go to the data, and then there's edit server path option. And if we change to that to the to a different published data source, generally we don't lose out. That's how I have been saving a lot of time at my work, because let's say we have three different servers. There's development, staging, and production. So we have to always reverse and change the data
Yeah.
source and then publish it. So that helps.
That's a good tip. David also asked if you have multiple mark shelves on your sheet, can you edit the tooltip? As long as you've edited like the universal tooltip and not each one individually, I found that you can. Where you can't do it is if you're using map layers. I think Tableau it breaks its brain. So map layers, you can't edit the tooltip from the dashboard, but I found that you can otherwise. But yeah, if you're like a dual axis chart has different tooltips, then no, I don't think you can.
Yeah. Okay, so I think there have been a lot of conversation going around when this presentation was going, so that's really good to see. And we don't have any more questions, Lisa. So thanks so much. Thanks so much for giving your time and
Thanks for having me.
bringing this Tableau conference session with us.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay, so we'll now head over to the last speaker for the night today. And so it's not night for most of you, maybe. It's morning. What time is it for you, Ojo?
It's 1:40 p.m.
That's nice. Okay, so guys, we have now Ojoswi Basu. You can find him on X at OJOSWI. That's Ojoswi. And currently he is at Data to Visuals. He's the founder of Data to Visuals, and he helps teams and individuals get better in the journey from raw data to actionable insights. And as a data evangelist, he believes in making data accessible to all. I think that's a very good way to put it, because that is really important. And about his Tableau journey, he has been part of the data fam since 2012, and he is deeply invested in the community. He's a 224 Tableau ambassador and also co-leads the retail and consumer goods tug. He also co-led the Toronto tug from 2017 to 22 and volunteers his time as a mentor for the Data Visualization Society. His hobbies are cooking, photography, and woodworking. If you have been following him on LinkedIn, you must have already seen so much of these beautiful pictures of his photography, cooking. So that's interesting. Apart from all the tab-related work he shares there. And today he's going to take us through his presentation on dynamic date range using parameter actions. So Ojoswi, I'll hand it over to you now.
Thank you, Prasann. Is my sound coming across okay?
Yes, it's perfect.
All right. I'll need the share screen option.
Yes.
Thank you. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, all good. You can go ahead.
All right. Thank you. I will not linger on this page. Thanks, Prasann and the team, for having me here. And fantastic introduction. I couldn't have said it better. I know we are not doing that great with time, so I will try to make it quick. I'm using Superstore dataset here. The goal of today's session is, because I've been spending so much time with folks who are early on in their career journey with Tableau, it's probably is not at the level which we saw with Lisa, and I apologize for that first, but I hope to bring some value here. Order date. This is a date field. If we do drag it onto the columns using the quick tips, I'm using month, and then I can drag sales onto the rows to give me a nice trend chart over months, but this is of all the years together. If I do switch this over to the green version, then it's month-year combination. So let's leave that. Let's call this sales trend. What I'm trying to build is another sales by region. I want to drag the region to the rows and the sales to the columns for a bar chart. Okay, I should have used the region, not the country. Right. Use the standard entire view. Use the toggle here to show the dollar value and probably sort from the highest number to the lowest. A new dashboard. Get rid of the phone layout. It messes me up. Fix this to a 1400. I'm going to try to use some of the tricks that Lisa has shown. So on my dashboard, I will want to see the title and then holding my shift down, I'm going to drag one of the containers T. And under that, I'm seeing that there is a tile here. I don't like that. I want to remove it right away. And under the dashboard, I want to now shift and drag a vertical, my garbage collector. And now I want to bring these two dashboards onto the vertical one after the other, right? Get rid of the tile. What do we have here? If I were to, I don't need it in this example, but what I have here is a sales trend and a region piece here. If I were to use the users filter, quick one, then I can click on any of these dates, hold the control down for multiple options, and I can see the sales by region is dynamically changing based on my choices. Fantastic. But what happens more often than not is when I give this to my end users who are not as Tableau savvy as we are, and upon publish, even in the consumer mode, they might end up clicking these plus minus buttons. And what was a chart, it could be a great feature for those who are chart savvy, Tableau savvy, but it could mess up those who are not. So this is one of the challenges. And the other challenge is, say in this visualization, my end user wanted to see that, fine, if I select these 3 points, I'm seeing the updated dollar value of the sales based on my choices. But what if I wanted to see part of the whole, as in how much is these $3 values compared to the entire use of, entire sales dollars for the entire data set. So two problems that I could solve. And probably a third one is I have a granularity at the now at the monthly level. If I wanted to preserve the feature of giving my users an ability without messing up, now this is at the week level, what could I do? So my answer to that would be create a parameter. Let me bring this here. For the best purposes, I wrote this as a grain of dates. It's a string type. I pre-wrote this quarter, month, and week. These are the three parameter values I'm offering. Let me change this to a single value list so that we can see what values we are picking. And instead of using right-clicking and bringing in order date, I have pre-written my formulas. Let me try and cheat. Copy here, Alt, C, and A, right? This is the first time I'm doing this, Alt, C, A. Nope, it didn't work. Alt, C, and A. No. Anyhow, create calculated field. I'm going to copy those formulas over. And now when I drag, I can create 1 and 2 calculated fields I'll be needing. What this is doing is the first one, the dynamic dates. It's a handle of my parameter with I'm using the parameter value to populate this field, and I'm saying when quarter is chosen, date trunk it to a quarterly level. When it's month, date trunk it to a monthly level. And when it's a week, date trunk to a weekly level. I see there is some problem with my okay, I see. I might have to write one formula. This is let's leave it for now. Edit. So I got my dynamic dates going. I want to now drag this one, make it into continuous, drag this here into the columns and choose continuous, and then drag my summer sales to the rows. Now, if I did so, when I choose months, weeks, and quarters, I can switch between the granularity without having to worry about my end users messing up the granularity. So let's call this dynamic sales trend, right? So with that done, sales by region, I have this here. Maybe duplicate this. Call this a dynamic sales by region. Fantastic. And now with this dynamic dates, I want to create a set. Why am I doing this? Because with sets, we can have the parts of the sets move around. So when I create that set, let me name it dynamic dates set. And now probably this formula will work. Dynamic dates set, and I will make this one dynamic dates. Fantastic. So here, this piece, I'm saying that if my dynamic dates set, which is the newly created set is here, if it's true, then add those values into dates and set it as a true and false. This fixes that problem. I don't need my calculation one anymore. So I delete it. Right. Let's look at how I can improve this from a chart like so to another dashboard, get rid of the phone layout, or maybe a better thing would be, like we learned, duplicate my entire dashboard. Everything's set here. Instead of this one, I want to switch it to my dynamic sales trend, switch, done, and my sales region to a dynamic sales region. Fantastic. Right. I do not need this filter option anymore, but I would definitely want to use sets. So in here I come, I throw in my dynamic dates, which are already here. And on the dashboard, delete this. On this dashboard, I want to use set action. Dashboard actions, instead of on this sheet, create a change value set. The driver being the trend. When I select, assign values to set. My set is the dynamic value set. And when I clear the selection, I want to show all values in the set. Click OK. All right. And in here, under the this one, I drag the dynamic value set to the color so that in and out, it shows up. Is it going to work? So what happens here now is when I select, I do definitely want to bring in my parameter. So dashboard action, dashboard analysis parameters, and grain of dates. And this, I should have been careful. Layout, tile, it has put, should have been careful, but no sweat. Make it holding shift down. I just made it floating, and I can later on clean it up. I have a weekly granularity. Let me go to a monthly granularity, choose a bunch of set date points. And now, because I use sets on the color, I can solve all the three requests, make it dynamic, either a monthly, quarterly, weekly. I do not have to worry about the user breaking it. Then based on the choices made using set action, I can show part to the whole. So everything that is selected, these three data points make up for a sale of 63,000 versus the total of 676. Now, if my user, and we all know our end users sometimes have more service required of them, we can drag this set into filter and say, show only those that are selected, much like how the parameters were. So if I select them, they change. When I unselect them, it rolls back to how they were before. I hope this was helpful. So we, just to recap, we talked about how we can build something, use dashboard actions to achieve something quickly, or rather switch over to set actions and then make this a similar experience. Any questions?
First, thank you so much, Ojo, for bringing this topic and the use cases. I think using a set to color that part at the end. I liked it very much, how you can swiftly opt between different selections and get the outcome. So great presentation. Thank you for bringing this topic to us. And I'll just go through the chat as well as our Q&A. Okay, so I think this was mostly around the conversations was happening when you were playing with the dynamic dates. So I think we are good to go. So thanks so much, Ojo. And I think we are at the end of the event now.
Right.
Okay.
I've stuck two QR codes right here. I'm trying to push my YouTube channel a bit selfishly. It's a plug. So if you do scan the YouTube, you find these similar short videos. What I do is I build and then I share how to build. And one other thing I wanted to share really quickly is on Tableau Public. I found this recently. So we have Viz extensions tables now enabled. So you could, I was really surprised to find it. And I thought that I must bring it up because something that the user data fam has been asking for a long time is now available. Did you know that?
I haven't used it yet, so yeah, I didn't knew. I maybe heard, but yes, I haven't used it. This is really nice. Earlier, I'd used the InfoTopics one at my work, so
Yeah.
this is also interesting. I will check it out. So a business dashboard
Awesome.
may be coming. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hojo. I'll hand over to Chimdi now, and yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Great time here today. We got to see some, Viz games, some speed tips, and some date stuff. So, nice, well-rounded stuff here. So we'll have more for you next month. Next month actually should be a fun one. I'll just wait till we promote that for you. So please do go register on our website so you can get all the details. Next month is one you don't want to miss. For those of us still here, thanks for hanging around, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day, whatever you get into.
That's a wrap.
Awesome.
Okay. Bye, everyone. I'll stop the recording now.